I am Performance One, and we are here today to show you a simple procedure for removing and replacing a cab bag on a Volvo VNL truck. Very simple procedure. A couple of tools that you need: a pair of dikes to cut any zip ties, a hooked blade for removing the bag, a pipe wrench for removing the fittings of the bag, something to trim the line, something to remove the fittings, the PTC air fittings, a screwdriver for removing the valve rod, assortment of wrenches, of course a new bag, and a sawzall, which I like to use for removing the bottom lock washer off of the airbag itself. The other thing I like to do is use the truck's equipment to lift the cab so that I can get the bag out. So I have a couple of different options for sealing the line so that I can use the other bag to lift the cab to remove the old bag and install the new bag. We are going to start with removing the arm that does leveling for the cab valve. This arm has already failed and is easy to remove. If your arm is still good, you would open up the top with a flat blade screwdriver so that you could get it off of the fitting. This arm and valve will be replaced in another upcoming video. Once you've removed the arm, you can then use the valve to release any residual air in the bags. These bags are already deflated, so nothing to concern yourself with there. This passenger side bag has been replaced earlier. We will be now replacing the driver's side bag. We will remove the fittings, air fittings, so that we can block this line and then use air pressure to lift the truck so that we can get the valve out, the bag out. This requires a simple tool for depressing the push to connect fitting. You can also use a open end wrench, a pair of pliers. I prefer to use the correct tool. Depress the push to connect fitting, push the hose in and pull it out. Set it out of your way. Once the air line is removed, we can remove the cover from the back of the truck. Simply pulls out, set it aside. I have placed penetrant oil in here to release the rust that might be apparent on the nut that holds the bag into the cab a week and a half ago, and I've let it soak in. So trustfully we'll be able to remove this without too much issue today. We can now remove the outer bag from the cab bag assembly so that we can get to the inner assembly with a pipe wrench and remove it from the threaded nut. I prefer to use a curved blade. I can dig into the bag, cut it, remove it out of my way. Cut the bag all the way around and remove it. And you can now see, as we're getting in here, the assembly that you will need to get a pipe wrench on to remove the old bag. I prefer to remove the whole bag so that I'm not fighting it while trying to remove the rest of the assembly from the truck. And I think you guys can see how nice the curved blade makes it work. Once the bag rubber has been removed, we will cap this line, air the truck up, and use our valve to use that cab bag to lift the cab off of the old assembly. We will put a couple of blocks of wood between the cab and the frame as dunnage to protect ourselves while we're working under here. So I'm going to remove the fitting from the bottom of this old bag so that it can be reused for the new bag. Now that we've removed that fitting, I will connect the two air lines so that I can use the valve to raise the cab with the other bag. We will put a PTC quick connect fitting in line. I then can use the valve to lift the cab. You can watch the other bag beginning to inflate, and the cab will begin to lift. We're unable to get the cab high enough to remove the old bag, so I brought a floor jack, set it here, placed a block of wood, and gently raised, keeping an eye on this part of the cab to make sure that it wasn't beginning to buckle or damage. I've now used my pipe wrench to remove the bag and have unscrewed it. It comes out. This plate goes back on the new bag. This bag can be thrown away. The next step we will use is a Sawzall to remove the lock washer that is underneath the lower assembly. Best for removing the lock washer that holds the bottom of the bag assembly into the cross member is a simple bimetal blade. It is plastic, it will cut quickly. I just place the blade near the lock ring, and then the lock ring will come right off, and we'll cut the bottom of the bag out. You can remove the lock ring, and you can see that I cut it at the lock ring. The lock ring can now be reused. We've removed all of the old bag, cleaned up the area, gotten the dust and dirt and grease and grime out of the area. We'll now collapse the new bag and put it into position, thread it up. I've added just a little anti-seize to the threads so that it'll be easy to get out again 20 years from now when we need another new airbag. Place the bottom in first into the hole, and then bring the bag around to the back of the truck, pushing down on it. Find the hole for the bag and thread it in. We've gotten the bag into position. I'm going to begin to thread it into the bottom of the cab. Does not need to be more than hand tight. Once it's tight, we can straighten the bag out, taking our original lock washer, place it to the bottom of the bag, and drive it in place. You may need a hammer for this. They hold on very well. Now that we have the new bag in place, the lock washer placed on the bottom, the top threaded hand tight, we will use the valve to release the air pressure from the cab so that we can then open up the lines and put our fittings back in. Once the fittings are in, we'll check for leaks after we air it back up, and we're good to go. We'll let it completely deflate. And once the pressure is removed, we'll take our patch out, place our fitting with some new thread sealer on it back into the bottom of the bag, check the ends of our air lines, make sure they're clean and ready to be reinserted in the push to connect fittings, air everything up, check for leaks. We've cleaned the ends of the line, made sure that they were cut cleanly, 90 degrees. We've replaced the fitting in, hand tight, +1 turn. We're going to reinstall our lines, pushing them in, pulling them out slightly on both sides. Till they bottom out, and then we will air up the truck, check for leaks, and The job is done.